Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over how I would personally mod as well as weaponize S-Class Frost. I know a lot of players are starting to get him now, and by players I mean also the free-to-play player base. I myself have just gotten my own Frost. Now I am using the Frost off the playtest account just because this one is maxed out, so it's a bit easier to show the different type of weapons that I might craft for Frost as well as the different type of mods that could work. So with S-Class Frost, you really do have an option with his Adrenaline Rush. You can max it out if you want because it's a pretty good Adrenaline Rush. Revive one teammate with 50% of their max HP. All teammates regain up to 30% of their max HP for 5 turns. So this is a great counter to infection. The healing over multiple turns is just very effective against it. And then also being able to revive a teammate makes him to be kind of a dual character because he can do multiple different things instead of just being a human shield. I kind of like characters that can fill in multiple roles, and his rush is what makes him to be a really good defensive character to me because usually you do want to have a reviver. Now with Frost's active skill, don't level it up. It is a waste of trainers, and he will always use it on the second turn if it's maxed out. Personally, I really dislike bonus HP. I find it to be so ineffective because bonus HP can be bypassed by bleed, by burn, by maim, by infection, of course, and it's just ineffective to me compared to what Frost can do by being a human shield and by opening up a target on the second turn. So if he's not shielding anymore because he's using this active skill, if you don't have complete coverage on the rest of your tunes, he becomes a liability. When we move on to Frost's mod set, I prefer HP set myself just because, as I mentioned before, bleed, burn, and maim, all of those abilities are used in the S-Class age still. Less so burn, but bleed could be used really effectively, and there's still a lot of tunes that use maim damage. Even the new Lily uses 5,000 maim, so by having a high HP, it just means that Frost is less likely to be killed by these indirect damage sources. I think though that you could easily use a defensive mod set as well, and it would still be pretty effective, but try to keep this general idea in mind that you are trying to make sure he survives, and the mod set may change kind of with the meta. So I have a confused resist on Frost right now because I've seen some people attack with Jackie leads if I have a Jackie lead or a Mercer lead on my defensive team. I have defense versus fast because there's tunes like Arav or Storm that are used on attack, and being a blue tune, Frost is especially weak to fast characters. I guess you can also throw Henyon in there as well, and that's one of the reasons why I have a reflect damage mod. I think reflect damage is very effective because you can reflect basic attack damage back onto the enemy, and Henyon, Priya, Dylan, Alpha, there's just a number of S-Class characters that use basic attacks on their rush. I guess some other mods you can consider, you can always put like a taunt resist on Frost, for example. Stun resist can go on Frost. There are so many different resist mods, even a defense down resist or a heal reduction resist mod would be pretty effective because people are attacking with a Traitor Wangfa combination or Mateo and Wangfa combination. So as long as he's not under 100% heal reduction, you have a fair chance of him rushing and being able to heal at least himself or maybe other tunes. Now with this auxiliary slot where the reflect damage mod is, this doesn't just have to be reflect damage. There are other effective mods that you could use. Like if more disarmed tunes come out, you could end up using the defense when disarmed in order to give yourself a huge boost. You could use a defense when stunned mod. If you think people are going to be using Mercer leads against you a lot, you could use a defense when confused mod as well in this position. Basically just methods to tank out your human shield so that the enemy is less effective with controlling your character. So it doesn't have to be reflect damage. I don't like bleed, I don't like burn, I don't like AP drain because all those are dependent upon your tune attacking, and you don't want your human shield to be attacking. You want them to be defending and defending the rest of your team. The main point is to keep in mind how the meta changes. When the meta changes, your mod set has to change with it. You have to be aware of what people will be running on attack, and you have to figure out the best way to combat it. So even though I'm giving you guys a breakdown of the mods that I would use and the mods that I am using right now, it doesn't mean it's going to be the best fit a month from now or even a week from now. I remember when I put out my video about the best mods for Priya with Rampage, and in the next week I ended up changing my mods because of the number of Jackie leads that there were, as well as the number of blue toons, as well as Aaron, so the yellow toon, him as a leader, and even Imani now at this point, who have impair weapons. So I switched my Priya's crit damage mod to attack up when impaired, just because she was becoming impaired so often, so I thought I would rather use the opponent's strengths against them. So based off of the different toons that the enemy is going to be using, like right now, there hasn't been really any game-changing toons that have come out since the Trader, in my opinion. So we all kind of have a general idea of what people are running on attack, and therefore we can mod our toons accordingly based on what we frequently see. Next, when we get into Frost's weapon, this is up to heavy debate, and I'm just going to show you guys a number of different weapon options that I would use on Frost personally. So this is the type of weapon that I'm currently trying to get on my Frost on my actual game. I would rather have 40% HP, of course, so I didn't get this perfectly, but I'm aiming to get an elusive impair weapon with 40% HP, 35% defense, and heal 10% at the start of every turn for each debuff on this character. Now, the reason I want to do this specific fourth craft is because a debuff, the way it's defined, it includes infection. So for anyone who tries to auto my defensive team, at least I'll still have a way of healing some of that infection, potentially all of it, if I have, say, infection as well as stun or confuse or taunt or something else on my Frost. So it would kind of be nice to have this healing loop where the enemy, when they rush me, they actually end up healing me every single time. For this specific build, I don't have AP when taking damage, which could be useful because, of course, when Frost rushes, he can revive a teammate and he provides, I think it's 5 turns of healing at 30%. So it's quite a bit of healing over quite a bit of time. But because I'm assuming my character is going to have status effects on him, which is why he's healing continuously, I don't think he'll have the ability to rush anyway. I'm instead tanking out his mod set, as you saw, with HP and defense mods, and only one resist mod at the moment. Another weapon that I've seen on some other people's Frosts, HP and defense, elusive impair, and a light daze. So when taking critical hit damage, you have a 30% chance to daze the enemy for the next 2 turns, which could be effective again against characters who have very powerful active skills that can either cause a debilitating status effect, like stun, taunt, confuse, impair. Well, impair isn't that bad on a human shield. In Frost's case, we might want him to rush, we might not want him to rush. It's all kind of up in the air. He's a very flexible toon that way. Infection, so like on a Mateo or even on a Trader, there's a number of different applications with this weapon. Now, the next weapon is quite similar. It just has a different fourth craft where it reduces critical hit damage by 50%, which can be pretty effective because we have a lot of toons, as mentioned before, that perform basic attacks on their rush, which could be critical hits. Now, it would be interesting because, as we've discussed before, a toon that does double attack, for example, so if they have a double attack weapon, like say Priya has a double attack weapon, so the first attack can be a critical hit and can cause crit damage, but the second attack would be at 175% of the attack if you have that better double attack weapon, and it could be a critical hit. And we know that because Rampage can sometimes trigger, but no crit damage is actually factored in. So it's kind of curious, and it would be interesting to figure out if this weapon is actually effective against the secondary attack or the tertiary attacks, and the tertiary attacks being Rampage damage. And I don't think Rampage damage would be affected by reducing critical hit damage, because that is based on the attack. And the double attack, it's hard to say because those are definitely critical hits sometimes, but there is no crit damage. So these are the type of questions that I often find myself asking myself and trying to figure out because I don't know the answer. So it's something I would have to test at a different time. The next type of weapon that I've seen on some Frosts, HP defense build, attack down. So when being attacked, a better chance to cause minus 45% attack for 3 turns to the enemy, and then adding on that 10% heal per debuff again. So by attack downing the enemy, that would include on basic attacks as mentioned before, so even reducing crit hit damage on the 4th slot would also be effective on this craft. I kind of like the attack down weapon here, just because people don't expect it, and people are expecting high amounts of damage to come out of their Aravs, their Priyas, their Princesses, and so on. Like, the only issue is that a basic attack has to hit Frost for this 3rd slot to activate, and a better chance is only about 35% of the time. So it isn't guaranteed, of course, but I do think it's a pretty interesting weapon to craft, and I've seen it on a few Frosts. Anyway, everyone, thank you again for watching and listening to my video. I hope this gave you guys some good ideas on how to mod as well as weaponize S-Class Frost.